They thought they had you figured out. They thought if they could silence you, replace you, or twist the narrative just enough, they'd win. But what they didn't realize is this: when you're chosen, your silence doesn't mean surrender. It means the storm is loading. And now that storm is here, and it has your name written in power, not pity. See, they thought betrayal would break you, that isolating you would shrink your shine. But it only sharpened your vision. They didn't kill your momentum. They exposed their weakness. They activated a version of you that doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't explain. And now they're stuck with the consequences of trying to play the devil's games against someone built to walk through fire untouched. While you rise in silence, they crumble in noise. While your peace multiplies, their chaos spreads like a virus. They tried to assassinate your character, but ended up murdering their own credibility. That's what happens when you go to war with someone who was forged in it. They should have known. You don't break chosen ones. You break trying to beat them. And what haunts them the most? It's not your success. It's your unbothered success. The kind that doesn't post revenge. It lives in elevation. Your presence alone disturbs their demons. Because you were never supposed to stay quiet. You were supposed to become louder in legacy than they could ever be in lies. Before we dive deeper into this reckoning, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop 777 in the comments if you feel the power rising in your bones right now. This message isn't just a reminder, it's a warning. For those who tried to cross the chosen, the haunting has only just begun. Before moving ahead, let me pause and pour gratitude into this moment. For those of you who have supported this mission through super thanks, your generosity is more than a gift. It's a spiritual signal. It tells me you're not just listening to the words, you're aligned with the vibration, walking this path of purpose, truth, and restoration with the ones who refuse to fold. Because of your support, this message reaches chosen ones across the world who were made to rise above betrayal, manipulation, and false narratives. And together, we are making sure the light never dims. Now, if your spirit is resonating, if your soul knows this message was carved for you in divine timing, take a breath and comment 999 below. Not as a trend, but as a quiet declaration that you see clearly now, that you're done shrinking, that you're chosen and walking in power. Number 1. Stop confusing peace with weakness. You were the water that held their world together. Not everyone will understand the weight you carry, because not everyone was built to hold it. But chosen one, you didn't ask for this calling. It called you. And the moment your spirit said yes, you became a problem to every force that feeds on fear, illusion, and control. They tried to study your patterns, mimic your peace, and downplay your presence. But no matter how they dressed it up, the truth remained. Your silence held more power than their noise ever could. They thought you were just watching, just sitting still. But what they didn't realize is that chosen ones don't react. They reposition, and while they were laughing behind screens and staging their little performances, you were upgrading, quietly, strategically, in alignment. They didn't know that your stillness was sacred, that while they were plotting, the universe was preparing your next elevation, that every setback was just a setup for the kind of comeback they'd have no access to witness. And let me say this from my heart. Thank you to the ones who feel this and still choose to support this mission through super thanks. That's not just generosity, that's alignment. It's soul currency, it's spiritual momentum. You're not just backing a message, you're pushing it forward into the hearts of people who are fighting silent wars, rising from betrayal and reclaiming their identity. And if you're here just watching, reflecting, or healing in silence, know that you're just as seen, just as valuable, just as chosen. Now, if your spirit has been nodding this entire time, if you felt that subtle fire rising in your chest, then let's do something bold and quiet at the same time. Comment 999 below. Not for me, not for applause, but for alignment. As a code that you're not just surviving the loss, you're transcending the lie. You're not just part of the mission, you are the mission, the evidence, the shift. Let's talk now. You weren't made to blend in. You weren't made to shrink. Your spirit walks into rooms and shifts dimensions. That's why they tried to break you. That's why they tried to silence you. Because even without saying a word, your presence demands accountability. And nothing that feeds off deception wants to sit next to truth. They weren't just uncomfortable with who you are, they were terrified of what you would become. But it's too late now. The glow is already activated, the ripple has already begun, and the ones who bet on your silence, they're the ones being haunted by your rise. Number 2. Never dim your flame to keep the room warm. They're the ones who couldn't handle the heat. Chosen one, let's make one thing clear. They weren't burned by your fire. They were exposed by it. Your presence didn't hurt them. It revealed everything they were trying to hide. And instead of leveling up to match your energy, they tried to extinguish you. But here's the truth. Your light was never the problem. Their shadows were. They whispered, "You're too intense." What they meant was, "You see too much." They said, "You're doing too much." What they meant was, "You're reminding me of what I'm not doing." You didn't show up arrogant, you showed up aware. And awareness is a threat to people who built their identity on lies, masks, and comfort zones. They wanted the warmth of your glow, but not the transformation your flame required. They wanted to bask in your light without doing the inner work to hold their own. And when they couldn't control it, they tried to contain it, make you smaller, quieter, easier to digest. But chosen ones weren't born to be palatable. You were born to be powerful. So don't shrink just because the room gets uncomfortable. Don't dim because someone else can't handle illumination. You weren't sent to make people cozy. You were sent to awaken, to ignite, to remind the world what real energy feels like. And if your presence makes them sweat, let it. If your light triggers their shadows, that's their invitation to evolve, not your cue to fade. You were forged in fire. Let them feel the heat. Number 3. Don't rush what's rooted. Shortcuts only lead to circles and spiritual dead ends. Chosen one, you were never meant to sprint through your story. You were designed to grow into it. But the ones who betrayed you, they didn't want growth. They wanted instant gratification. They wanted the crown without the character, the reward without the refinement. So they cut corners, skipped steps, traded depth for speed. And now they're dizzy, spinning in circles with nothing to show but repeated mistakes and recycled regrets. They laughed at your patience, mocked your discipline, called your silence stagnation. But what they didn't understand is this. When you're rooted in purpose, you don't need to perform. You build slow because you're building strong. You don't rush greatness. You become it, layer by layer, trial by trial, in the unseen spaces where real power is forged. Now look at them, reaching for what they once ran from, trying to patch broken paths with fake victories and shallow noise. But shortcuts don't create legacy. They collapse under pressure, and that's exactly where they are now, lost in spiritual dead ends, haunted by the pace they mocked you for. So don't you dare question the length of your journey. You weren't delayed, you were developed. While they chased the crowd, you chased the calling. And now, you're blooming in silence while they spiral in circles. Number 4. Walk away without guilt. They didn't betray you. They disconnected from their own protection. Chosen one, you keep replaying it, wondering if you walked away too soon, if you could have done more, stayed longer, explained better. But let's be real. What they did wasn't just betrayal, it was self-sabotage. They weren't just walking away from you, they were walking away from the force that was covering them. You weren't just kindness, you were protection. You weren't just support, you were alignment. You were the reason chaos stayed quiet around them. But ego can't recognize shelter when it comes in silence. Pride will always mislabel protection as control, and so they disconnected, and now they're exposed and feeling it in every corner of their life. The peace is gone, the flow is blocked. The favor they mistook for luck, it left with you, and now you're sitting with the guilt they should be holding. Chosen one, release it. You don't owe anyone an apology for choosing peace over pain. You didn't abandon them, they abandoned the gift. And now life is handing them the invoice for what they wasted. The storm that followed your exit isn't karma, it's confirmation that your presence was never ordinary, that your energy was never replaceable. Number 5. Quit wasting time. Explaining, they missed the assignment because they feared the growth. Chosen one, stop trying to teach those who never came to learn. You've been explaining your worth to people who were never ready to understand it, because understanding you would mean facing everything they're running from in themselves. They didn't reject you out of confusion, they rejected you out of recognition, because deep down they saw the mirror. And mirrors don't lie. You weren't too deep, they were too shallow. You weren't too much, they were too unprepared. What they called overwhelming was actually their inner resistance flaring up. You were the upgrade they asked for, the shift they prayed for. But when it showed up in human form, wrapped in truth and maturity, they panicked. Because growth doesn't coddle egos. It exposes what needs to be healed. And that's exactly what you did, without even trying. They missed the assignment. Not because it wasn't clear, but because the assignment required evolution, it required humility, it required shedding old versions, and some people would rather stay broken than be rebuilt. So stop circling the same explanations, stop translating your soul for people who refuse to listen. You are not an interpreter for their denial, you are the proof they weren't ready for. And every time you waste time explaining, you step down from a throne you never had to justify in the first place. You were never here to convince, you were sent to awaken. And if they chose comfort over clarity, that's not your burden to carry. Number 6. Don't trade purpose for pleasure. They sold their future for a feeling, and now they're starving. Chosen one, let this be your reminder. Quick highs come with deep crashes. They thought they were choosing freedom when they ran toward that temporary thrill, that shiny moment, that ego boost that cost them everything. But they weren't chasing freedom, they were selling their future. You, on the other hand, were purpose in human form. You weren't offering a fling, you were offering foundation. And instead of rising with you, they chased the rush that's now running them into ruin. They didn't just reject you, they rejected alignment. They mistook your stillness for boredom, your peace for predictability, your consistency for control. But you weren't there to trap them, you were there to transform them. And transformation, that demands presence, that demands maturity, that demands truth. They weren't ready for that, so they reached for the easy, the fast, the loud, and now they're left with echoes, choking on the smoke of what used to be solid. Let them scroll through empty validation. Let them touch hands that don't feel like home, because nothing they find will replace the power they walked away from. Your energy wasn't casual, it was covenant. And now that they've fumbled the real, all they have left are imitations that keep collapsing in their hands. You weren't asking for perfection, you were offering purpose, and they sold it for a moment that couldn't even hold them through the night. So let them hunger, let them ache, because they didn't just lose a person, they lost the version of themselves they could have become beside you. Number 7. Stop apologizing for being the mirror. Their anger was never about you, it was about their reflection. Chosen one, let's get something straight. You didn't hurt them. They saw themselves in you and flinched. You didn't destroy their peace. You exposed that they never had any to begin with. You weren't judging. You weren't attacking. You were simply being, and that was too much for people who've spent their whole lives performing. You didn't start the war. You just walked into the room holding a mirror so sharp their own lies couldn't survive the reflection. And instead of owning the truth, they made you the enemy, called you too intense, too deep, too honest. But none of that was real. What they really meant was, you made me feel seen, and I wasn't ready. So they turned your light into a target. They projected their guilt onto your presence. They smashed the mirror, thinking it would break the truth, but all it did was cut them deeper. Because the truth, it doesn't disappear when it's denied. It waits, and it returns. And now, every fake smile they force, every hollow room they sit in, every night they can't sleep, they hear your silence louder than your words ever were. Stop apologizing for being the reminder, for being the standard, for being the reflection of who they could have been if they had chosen healing over hiding. You weren't the problem, you were the proof. And now that you're gone, they're not angry at you. Number 8. Refuse to shrink into replicas. You were the blueprint, and nothing fits without you. Chosen one, you were never meant to fit in because you were born to be the design, the original, the reference, the blueprint. And now that you've walked away, they're scrambling to piece together fragments of your essence. But nothing clicks, nothing flows, and nothing feels whole. Because you were the foundation, the structure, the silent architect of everything they're now pretending to build without you. They didn't just lose a person, they lost alignment. They didn't just fumble connection, they destroyed the coordinates. And now they're left building off memory and mimicry, trying to recreate your presence with imitations that fall flat, shallow, and soulless. It's not working. It never will. You didn't just offer companionship, you offered clarity. You weren't just love, you were structure. While they were chasing shortcuts, you were laying down pillars, and now that you've gone quiet, their world has gone crooked. Because it wasn't your attention that kept things together. It was your intention. So don't you dare shrink now. Don't you dare soften your design to fit into knockoffs built from envy. They couldn't handle your light, and now they're choking on your absence. That's not ego, that's energy. That's what happens when the blueprint walks away and takes the divine code with it. Let them chase replicas, let them perform. But you were the mold. And once the mold is broken, everything else is just a cheap copy, trying to survive in a space only you could hold. Keep rising. Stay original. Stay untouchable. Number 9. Let them bet against you. The odds were always stacked in your favor, not theirs. They laughed behind your back, thinking they were ahead. They counted you out before the story even started. But chosen one, here's the part that rattles them the most now. The moment they bet against you was the moment they lost everything. Because when you are chosen, you're not walking through life with luck, you're walking with alignment. And alignment doesn't play by their rules. It bends the odds until the impossible becomes your normal. They thought you were the underdog, but you were never beneath them. You were just hidden, positioned in silence, while life sharpened your edge. They bet on your downfall, hoping your quiet meant defeat. They mistook your patience for weakness. But behind the scenes, you were evolving into something they couldn't copy, predict, or stop. You weren't losing, you were loading. And now they're watching the very vision they mocked rise into reality right in front of them. The access is gone, the proximity they wasted is revoked, and the jackpot they walked away from, you Because the real gamble wasn't you risking it all on them. It was them thinking your value depended on their belief. Let them choke on the silence they once cheered. Let them scroll through your glow-up like a timeline of regret. Because, chosen one, your rise isn't revenge, it's prophecy unfolding. You don't need to clap back. Your wins echo louder than their words ever could. Let them keep watching. The higher you go, the more they'll realize. The deck was never in their hands. It was always yours. And now, game over. You were the gamble. Number 10. Use the betrayal as fuel. They didn't destroy you. They built the version they now fear. Chosen one, there's a version of you walking this earth now that only exists because of the betrayal. They thought breaking you would bury you, but it activated your blueprint. You didn't just survive, you evolved, stronger, smarter, sharper. They didn't end you. They exposed what was always inside you, unstoppable power. You need to understand, the people who tried to dismantle your spirit were the very architects of your transformation. The lies, the abandonment, the calculated silence. It was all designed to make you question yourself. But it had the opposite effect. You became more dangerous in the silence, more focused in the dark. While they were rehearsing fake victories, you were outgrowing every version of yourself they thought they knew. They don't fear what they did to you. They fear who you became because of it. Let that betrayal burn in your memory, not as pain, but as pure fuel. They gave you nothing, and you built everything. That's power. That's chosen energy. You're no longer seeking revenge. You are the consequence. You are the wake-up call. And the best part? You don't need to prove anything. Just keep building. Just keep glowing. Their regret is the proof. Number 11. Don't grieve the ones who couldn't grow. You were the version of them they weren't ready to become. Don't grieve the ones who couldn't grow, because truth is, you were never just a memory to them. You were the mirror, the future version of themselves they weren't ready to meet. The healed version, the focused version, the version that let go of excuses, rose from chaos, and demanded more. You weren't just a chapter in their story. You were the blueprint for the next one. But instead of rising with you, they froze. Instead of evolving, they escaped. And now they're stuck. Not because you were hard to love, but because you made love feel like a responsibility, not just a rush. You challenged them, not with lectures, but with your consistency. You inspired them, not with words, but with your alignment. But alignment demands accountability, and they weren't built for that. So they blamed you, painted your growth as distance, your clarity as coldness, your elevation as ego. But let's be clear, they didn't leave because you were too much. They left because your presence made their stagnation too obvious. Chosen one, stop replaying what could have been. Stop grieving people who refuse to stretch. You were never supposed to shrink to keep them comfortable. You were supposed to keep growing, and let their silence confirm your separation. They didn't just lose you, they lost the version of themselves they could have birthed beside you. And now, you've become the proof. You've become the potential they feared. So let them stay where they chose to stop. You've got mountains to move and mirrors to smash. Keep rising, keep becoming, keep walking like the future they rejected now walks inside of you. Number 12. Stop looking back at broken ground. You were the foundation, and they can't rebuild what they burned. Chosen one, you keep revisiting the ruins like something sacred is still buried there. But the truth is, they didn't just walk away. They set fire to the very ground you built them on, and now they're stuck trying to build palaces on ashes. You were the blueprint, the structure, the reason anything even stood in the first place. And when they betrayed you, they didn't just lose a person, they lost the entire foundation. You weren't just supportive, you were stability. You weren't just present, you were the pillar. And they didn't just abandon you, they forfeited every blessing, every breakthrough, every alignment that came through your energy. You were the one holding things together while they were busy tearing things apart. And now they're realizing something chilling. You can't replace the foundation once it's gone. You can buy bricks, you can fake a facade, but without the original ground it stood on, it all crumbles. So stop revisiting burned bridges hoping they've been rebuilt. They haven't, and they won't. Not because you're heartless, but because the lesson wasn't to go back. It was to finally see what role you truly played. You weren't an accessory to their story. You were the structure, and without you, nothing stands. Let them figure it out on hollow ground. Let them try to recreate what they shattered. But you move forward. Because foundations like you don't get recycled, they get revered. And as we close this chapter, let this truth settle deep into your spirit. Foundations don't chase what collapsed. They rise and rebuild elsewhere, stronger, higher, untouchable. You were never meant to return to broken ground. You were meant to build empires where the soil honors your presence. Let their regret echo in silence while your purpose speaks in legacy. If this message struck something real in you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop 777 in the comments below. Let the world know you're not looking back. You are the foundation, and you're building forward.